Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Hey guys, the Windy City is usually windy. It is way more windy than usual right now in Chicago as the Chicago Blackhawks. I'd almost call it an epic start to this season, but it's in the worst possible way. So I don't know if epic is the right word. I can't think of the right word to describe the Chicago Blackhawks right now. This is an organization that was the dynasty of the 2010s, let's be honest. Maybe other than Pittsburgh or LA and the Chicago Blackhawks. It was really those three teams. And since then, this team has just everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. And they are completely cleaning out house in Chicago. Now, a couple weeks ago, Stan Bowman, the general manager, was fired. Former head coach was supposed to be the quintessential head coach of Chicago, Joel Quenneville, fired from his job in Florida. A couple of assistants have since left the Chicago Blackhawks as well. Ian Mitchell, the president. And now the latest victim in Chicago is the head coach, Jeremy Colliton. After 3 seasons, 3 full seasons in his 4th season, Jeremy Colliton has been fired as the Blackhawks head coach. He came into Chicago in the 2018-2019 season. There was a lot of turmoil with Joel Quenneville and the Blackhawks were just waiting for the right time to get rid of Joel Quenneville, and they finally started to have some problems. They lost the Nashville Predators in the first round, and they started finding themselves on the wrong side of things. They let go of Joel Quenneville. That 2018-2019 season, they would miss the playoffs. The first season with Jeremy Colliton, going 30-28-9 that season. Now, the next season, in the 2019-2020 season, they would play in the first round, and they would play the Vegas Golden Knights, where they would ultimately lose that season. They did beat who did they beat in the qualification round? They beat somebody in the qualifiers. So Chicago was a team to be, at the very least, keeping an eye on in 2020. They ended up going 32-30-8. So again, only 32 wins. Again, in a shortened season, they showed little bits of improvement, and again, they did make it to the playoffs. That would be the only time they would make the playoffs, though, under Jeremy Colliton in the 2020-21 season, which was really the 2021 season. It was this spring and this past winter. It was a shortened season, so they only had 24 wins, 25 losses, and 7. So they went 24, 25, and 7. And that led to missing the playoffs again in Chicago. But there was still some optimism that with what they did this offseason, they had acquired a really good draft pick. They had brought in Seth Jones and Caleb Jones. They had brought in the Vezina Trophy winner here in 2021 in Marc-Andre Fleury. And the expectations were that the Chicago Blackhawks could be that team as a dark horse that makes the playoffs in 2022. Well, they didn't get that far, unfortunately, this season. As the 2021-2022 season, the 21-22 season has started, through the first dozen games, the Blackhawks have 1 win, and they have gone 1-9-2 through the first dozen games of the season, and Jeremy Colliton has been fired as the head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. Over his 205 games coached as the Blackhawks head coach, 87 wins, 92 losses, and 26 overtime or shootout losses. He's got I think it's like a 450 win percentage. It doesn't cut it, especially in Chicago with the success that they had before Colliton got there. Colliton really was never given a chance. When you look at, replacing Joel Quenneville, he was pretty much booed on his, the first night as a head coach in Chicago. He never really got the love from the fans. And, he was Stan Bowman's guy. And there was some genuine concern once Stan Bowman got fired that there would probably be some changes in the coaching room. And we are seeing that just a week or two after Stan Bowman's firing, or his resignation, whatever you want to call it. But Jeremy Colliton has been fired. And Jeremy Colliton and his assistants Tomas Mittel, Sheldon Brookbank have all been fired. So Colliton, Mittel, and Brookbank have all been fired and let go from the the coaching staff of the Chicago Blackhawks. Derek King will take over as the interim head coach. Now there's more to this storyline though, as back in 2009, Derek King, who is the interim coach, you may be wondering, who is Derek King? Derek King was, back in 2009, was his first coaching gig. He was the assistant coach of the Toronto Marlies, and he was eventually promoted to the associate head coach in 2014. So he was he went from the third guy to the second guy in hand in 5 years. In 2015, he became the assistant coach of the Owen Sound Attack in the Ontario Hockey League. He only lasted till October, so he lasted about 2 months in the OHL before 2016, when he would go back to the professionals, going to the Rockford Ice Hogs, which is the AHL affiliate of your Chicago Blackhawks. So that was his time in 2016. He was the assistant coach in Rockford. He replaced Jeremy Colliton in 2018 as the Rockford Ice Hogs head coach. Now you're seeing the forest for the trees here, right? Because now in 2021, 3 years after replacing Colliton as the head coach in Rockford, it's pretty poetic. He has replaced Jeremy Colliton as the head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. So this is the second time Derek King is replacing Jeremy Colliton in the past 3 years. So, what is the vibe in the Blackhawks right now? Well, there's always the concern when you have an assistant coach becoming head coach, because normally in the locker room you have the assistant coach who is usually the good guy. He's he's the guy that is the player's coach, right? Normally, and the head coach is more the bad guy, and has to be a little bit more stern with his players. So now you change that dynamic from being an assistant coach to becoming the head coach, even in an interim role. There is some question about what is that reputation between Derek King and his players. Because does this become a situation where the players run the asylum? I mean, you look at the veteran leaders on this team. You have Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, a lot of guys that have been around the block in Chicago, and could they start to dominate the room? And we saw this a couple years ago from the Washington Capitals. Once Barry Trotz left the Caps going to the Islanders, when the head coach of the Hershey Bears came up, he was an assistant for a little while with the Capitals before Trotz left, and he never really got the room there with the Capitals. Could we see something similar to that here with the Chicago Blackhawks with Derek King? Now, like I said, he's been coaching since 2009 in some form at professional level. So he has some experience, but he has very little experience as a head coach. Like I said, he was for probably a season or two with the Rockford Ice Hogs before coming into the NHL as an assistant. So there's a real good opportunity to see where things stand with the Blackhawks, because all the talk has been, it really has been Jeremy Colliton, who hasn't been a good head coach. Well, now the question will be answered by the end of the season, because now they have a good 70 games to figure out if it's the coaching staff or is it the lack of depth and the lack of development from this hockey team. I mean, let's be honest, this has been a team that there have been some questions about some of the guys they brought in. I'm specifically looking at their back end right now. Connor Murphy and Jake McCabe. This summer there was a little bit of an alarming thing from Stan Bowman. He had a press conference and he was talking to the media, and they were asking about some of the new additions, Jake McCabe and Connor Murphy. And he was going back to, I believe it was the 2011 or 2009 World Junior Championships, where he saw Jake McCabe and Connor Murphy and said, I want both of those guys on my team. I hate to break it to you, that was at least a decade ago since that happened. The fact that he was still looking at that time and trying to get those players now, the fact he hasn't had an evaluation of those guys since then, was concerning to me this summer about Stan Bowman, other than all the off-ice stuff. So I think there is some genuine concern that this team was starting to go down this path. It was almost, they were a victim of their own success. And this team just was never able to get back to that formula where they just had the magic. And even in those cup runs, this was a team that had turmoil during that time, but they were still able to win games and win championships. And what do I always say? Everybody in the hockey business says, winning cures everything. You could have the worst situation, but you're winning hockey games, nobody really cares. And once the Blackhawks started to lose games, there was a little bit of adversity, they just pulled the plug on everything. But I think at this point, it was time for a hard reset, a hard reboot on the Chicago Blackhawks organization. Unfortunately, it took a really bad circumstance for them to do that, but this is an opportunity for the Blackhawks with Derek King, with some of that group, to maybe say, this is the reboot, the reset that we need. And it may not be over yet. I mean, there is still talk that we could see. I mean, I hate to say it, if things don't turn around, could Marc-Andre Fleury ask for another trade before the end of the season? If Pittsburgh's in a playoff spot, does he maybe look to go to Pittsburgh? Does he maybe look to go elsewhere? To maybe go for, cup chasing here at the end of his career at 37, 38 years old. And Dylan Strome seems to be another name that's been attractive to other players around the league. He seems to be, now that Eichel is gone, the top option for teams. He could be a guy that goes to Minnesota. Could be a guy that, maybe finds himself on the West Coast as some depth as a center. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I want to hear from Blackhawks fans. I want to hear from non-biased fans from the rest of the league. What do you guys think of the Chicago Blackhawks? And honestly, I think this is a good thing for this team because, like I said, this has been a team now that is not, let's be honest, they have not won a playoff series since they last won a Stanley Cup back in, I think it was 2016. Was it 2016 or 2018? That's the last time the Blackhawks have won a playoff series. Yeah, it was 2016, I think. Yeah. Or no. Yeah, 2016. It's been a long time since then. And I think it is time that the Blackhawks finally get their team back on track. So, let me know what you guys think down below. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, more videos just like this one, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And an even bigger subscribe down below. Guys, make sure to check out our Streamlabs shop in the description down below. It helps me out. It's a way to help support the channel, but just to pick up some Goal Line Hockey swag. And maybe you're running a little low on the funds. That's okay too. If you guys just like and subscribe, that does a world of difference for this channel. It gets us into the algorithm a little bit more, and that way more people can watch us. So I really do appreciate that. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you again next time.